Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzon. Let's bring you the big stories we're tracking at this very hour. The Department of State Services arrests the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Mr. Joe Ajaero, at the Abuja International Airport. Leadership of the National Association of Nigerian Students to meet with President Bola Tinubu over the rise in the price of petrol as citizens continue to groan over its impact on life and livelihood. And Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy refused to report that the rate for value-added tax has been increased from 7.5% to 10%. Let's bring you news just saying that officials of the Department of State Services have arrested the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Mr. Joe Ajaero, at the Abuja International Airport. The head of media and corporate communications, Mr. Benson Upa, confirmed this to Channels Television's Labour correspondent. Ajaero is said to be on his way to the United Kingdom when he was billed to attend a conference. So that is the latest story just coming in a few moments ago, that Mr. Joe Ajaero has been arrested by the DSS on his way to the UK at the Abuja International Airport. If you remember, he's been a subject of investigation following the mention of his name in an ongoing investigation that involves treason, subversion, and other very serious charges, of which he appeared before the police to make statement with his lawyer, Femi Falana, and was supposed to make another appearance, I believe. But now on his way to the UK, Mr. Joe Ajaero has now been arrested by the Department of State Services on his way to the UK. It's a story that is developing, and as soon as we get further details, whether this is connected to all of that investigation, we will let you know. But that is breaking news at the moment. All right, there's a lot we're going to talk about, one of which is the fuel subsidy. Our correspondent, fuel price hike, I should say. Our correspondent across the north and south is standing by to bring us updates across the street, as well as what is going on ahead of the Edo election, which is about 2 weeks or so away from now. But first, on our DSTV platform, we'll go live to Edo State, where the All Progressives Congress are holding their rally or their campaign in Auchi in Edo State. That's the All Progressives Congress campaign in Auchi is taking place right now as we speak in Edo State. So only on our DSTV platform, I will continue our regular programming like Lunchtime Politics on other platforms. Well, let's continue with some stories now before we get to our correspondent. A refutal by the federal government on the increase of value-added tax also gets our attention in the program, as the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Ajaero, has maintained that it is untrue that VAT has been reviewed upwards to 10% from 7.5%. Mr. Ajaero affirms that the VAT rate as contained in relevant tax laws and chargeable on goods and services remains at 7.5%, and it is binding on government and its agencies. It says the tax system stands on the tripod of tax policy, tax laws, and tax administration, all aggregating vitality to the fiscal position of the government, and re-emphasize that the focus of government is to use fiscal policy in a manner that promotes and enhances economic growth. His comments perhaps follows criticism to the proposal by the Taiwo Yedele-led Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee to increase VAT for some top businesses to 10% from 2025 to complement the significant reduction that will be charged on small businesses that may even get to as low as 0. In the meantime, the leadership of the National Association of Nigerian Students now says it is ready to meet with President Bola Tinubu if need be over his demand for the reversal of the recent increase in pump price of petrol. The secretary of the National Association of Nigerian Students, that's Nance David Barieka, revealed this during an interview with Channels Television in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. According to him, the student body is currently in discussion with key stakeholders in the petroleum industry to seek solutions that will alleviate the public's burden. The development comes following the hike in the price of petrol across the country. Also, the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has given President Bola Tinubu 48 hours, that should be about 24 hours or less by now, to direct the NNPCL to immediately reverse what it terms the illegal and unconstitutional increase in the pump price of petrol. In an open letter to the president, the rights group argued that the increase in petrol price constitutes a fundamental breach of constitutionally guaranteed, that is guaranteed in the Constitution and countries' international human rights obligations. Now, besides making a case for cheaper fuel, Serap asked the president to direct the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, and the appropriate anti-corruption agencies to probe allegations of corruption and mismanagement in the NNPCL. And more stories now. After a decade-long communal clashes between residents of Abolegba and Egba communities in Agatu local government area of Benue State over a fish pond, peace has finally been restored to the warring communities. That's following the signing of a peace accord orchestrated by the International Alert and local community development partners. The country director of the International Alert, Mr. Paul Benshima, while speaking on the peace model adopted, says since the conflict was about resource control, communities in Agatu were provided with more fish ponds and other economic means of livelihood.
We're really excited today at this peace agreement signing ceremony between communities in Fidi, the Tiv and the Jukun, and then in Agatu, the Egba, Ologba, and the Akaida. These communities have gone through a long process of dialogue and negotiation on the issues that have actually led to conflict in those locations. The conflicts are natural resource-based conflicts, fundamentally land, water, and fish ponds. We have ensured that we take them through participatory processes, and they have come up with their local peace and adaptation plan, which lay out priorities that help them to deal with the impact of climate change, build social cohesion, and also increase income. This morning, they went through a field learning exercise. They shared experiences on their conflicts and how they've been resolving them. And largely, we have come here now to sign this peace agreement, which is a culmination of all the work that we've been doing with them. So this project, Powering Peace Through Climate Actions, focuses on peace initiatives that have climate relevance for the communities.
And let's get back to, from the communal clash, let's get back to the issue of the fuel hike. But this time, we can tell you that the Senate committee that is investigating the issues around the industry, that's the Senate, it has deferred its investigation into the alleged sabotage in the petroleum industry, citing the need for wider consultation with stakeholders whose input and participation, they say, will add value to the conclusion of investigation. We have a statement from them saying this, that they are investigating all of the allegations of sabotage. So they were supposed to have some hearing, but that has been postponed. They also cited legislative exigencies aimed at further deepening due diligence in the conduct of investigative hearing as one other reason for postponing the hearing. The leader of the Senate and chairman of the Senate Ad Hoc Committee to investigate the alleged economic sabotage in the Nigerian petroleum industry, Senator Okpeyemi Bamidele, who is the Senate Majority Leader, gave these reasons in a statement it released just about 48 hours ago. The Senate has set up this committee to investigate billions of naira spent, or dollars, not naira now, spent on maintaining the nation's refineries. Its reference is also to beam searchlight on the regulatory agencies' overpayment to transporters and unravel alleged importation of hazardous petroleum products and dumping of substandard diesel into the country. These are some of the things they are going to be looking at. The Ad Hoc Committee had concluded its pre-investigative undertakings and held an interactive session with the heads of ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as some private industry interest in the downstream and midstream sector. But after the exhaustive engagement with select MDAs and oil firms, the Ad Hoc Committee has subsequently scheduled its investigation hearing for today, or tomorrow rather, Tuesday to Thursday, September the 12th. That's September the 10th to the 12th. It was supposed to kick off by tomorrow, but they are now saying that has now been deferred because everyone is trying to find out who exactly is importing substandard diesel, substandard product that is ruining our automobile. But we may have to wait for a little longer, but we're all eyes on it. But we'll take a quick break, and when we come back after this quick break, we'll continue our conversation. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's tell you that President Bola Tinubu has ended his visit to China, which he says was very successful. He rated himself when he spoke with Nigerians in the diaspora. Foreign Affairs correspondent Amarachi Ubani sums up this visit and what Nigeria may or may not have achieved with the president's visit.
A warm and colorful arrival to Beijing, China, and President Bola Tinubu kicked off his visit to the country with much expectation. Just like other presidential visits, he was expected to engage in a one-on-one discussion with Chinese President Xi Jinping, where both would table issues of mutual interests. He was also expected to sign new deals that will boost Nigeria's economic partnership with the country and leave Nigeria feeling richer as China's #1 partner in Africa. According to the presidency, all of that did take place. The president did hold a one-on-one meeting with the Chinese president, and both later announced the elevation of China-Nigeria relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership.
Mr. President.
Discussions filtered to economic cooperation, and both witnessed the signing of mutual cooperation documents related to China's Belt and Road Initiative and other economic development projects. And what's a presidential visit to another country without a chit-chat with the Nigerian community, where he charges Nigerians in China to be good ambassadors?
What is uppermost in my mind is for you to represent Nigeria. Nigeria for development. Nigeria for good citizenship. Here you are one of us, and we have to encourage you to be good ambassadors. All of you.
So did the president have a good outing in China? Career diplomat and former deputy head of mission of the Nigerian embassy in Beijing, Ambassador Chuka Udedibia, says Nigeria needs to be focused on something else: implementation of agreements and balancing of common interests.
We are sovereign countries and should relate to other sovereign countries on bilateral basis as sovereign nations. And each country established what we call joint commissions to handle their relations, their bilateral economic relations. There is also trade in services. There are so many aspects of bilateral relations. How have we fared in all these other areas?
He eventually answers the question about the president raising his visit, a very successful one.
Nigerian president, not just Bola Tinubu, but other presidents in the past, have been doing exactly the same thing. Because I was deputy head of mission in China. We saw China grow. When it started, we witnessed some of these things. And that's our job. We were writing reports, we are advising the government. This is the route to take. This is how Nigeria can benefit from till date. That has not been done.
As with all state visits, the achievements may only be noticed in the coming months. And with the president so confident already, we'll just have to wait and see. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
So that just sums up the president's visit. Let's see what will come out of that in terms of some practical outcome as far as that visit is concerned, besides the promises that have been made. But let's get to the very first conversation, or the conversation for today in our polity. In about 2 weeks from now, exactly 2 weeks from now also, the Edo State people will be going out to the polls to decide who leads them in the next 4 years. About 16 candidates want that job to take over from Godwin Obaseki, who is the incumbent governor of the state. In the last election, barely about 10% of the population decided the fate of their state when you look at the number. So, which is why it's an important conversation today on the program. We're joined in the program via Zoom by the Executive Director, Electoral College Nigeria, Mr. Kunle Lawal. Mr. Lawal, thank you so much for coming on the program. All right, Mr. Long, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very clearly, sir.
All right, absolutely. So let's get to it. So help us cancel out the noise from the rhetorics or what I consider political filibustering to some substance. What are you hearing and what are you seeing from the candidates? What's your impression so far?
Yes. Well,
Yes, I can hear
you know that
Go ahead, Mr. Lawal.
I cannot. I can hear. I'm speaking. Generally, the Electoral College Nigeria is non-partisan, and of course, our views on this on the candidates generally has been that a few candidates have played politics as, how would I put it, as the culture is. And some have tried to set out quite a new standard. I'll be honest that the rhetorics coming out of Edo State are not very favorable from some candidates with parties in a large following. But some have kept to the ideologies of what they wish to do or the campaign mantra they are trying to drive. There's been a lot of misinformation and disinformation within the Edo top frontline runners. And I think this has helped dispel or cause quite a friction between people participating. A lot of people are trying to say that maybe it could be business as usual and maybe it could be a clear situation of the election has already been decided. And I think that's what the rhetoric from some candidates are selling. So it's quite a funny thing. There's quite a lot of noise. Like I said, I wouldn't mention any names, but there's been quite a lot of noise going on in Edo, and I just think it's going to bring in quite a lot of voter apathy into the state elections.
Mr. Lawal, our responsibility, you and I, is to help the people sieve out the noise at the end of the day. So if we want to help them do that in just a moment, what do you expect, or what would you suggest to the people of Edo? They are very intelligent, we must say that. But because of the loudness of some of this filibustering, let's condense it for a bit with them and for them. What should voters be expected to hear from their candidates?
Well, for me, I'm going to look at it from a few critical sectors. First and foremost, Edo should based on the economy of the world, the economy of Nigeria, and now the economy of Edo State. I think people should be looking for key indicators on a candidate that's trying to explain generally what we exactly intend to take Edo State economically in the next 4 years. Another thing which is key, which is dropping Edo used to be known by before, was education. I think also every candidate should look, the electorate should look fully at the precedence of every candidate. On what premise has he been is he running on what idea? We should stop looking at the Godfather situation or whether this party is big or not, or whether the candidates, there's a woman running. So I don't think she too should be ignored. I think there's one female candidate. So I think the people should be concerned to sieve out the noise. They should be concerned. What exactly do you want to do? Don't tell us our party did this in 1942, or don't tell us our party is known for this, or you are voting for us because we are the ruling party, or you are voting for us because we are the ones in the government house. I think the real conversations should be what exactly is this man's plan or woman's plan for Edo in the next 4 years? How do these plans affect myself, my family, agriculture, education, health, and infrastructural development in Edo State? And how can we turn Edo into a pride of the South-South? I think those are the kind of things the electorate should be looking out and listening to. It's very critical to understand that they should also understand that people should not be voted for because maybe they have held a particular position or they have served in a particular capacity, which is not executive, and don't understand the rudiments of an executive position as large as that of the governor of Edo State. I think people should look for people exactly to perform in exact positions as they will perform as their governor. So I think these are the kind of conversations we should have. And people should remember they should come out en masse, because the only time elections could be altered, issues could happen, are when people do not come out en masse to participate in elections. That's when funny things can go on. I think it's the onus on them also to help with that, because they are in the final stages. And I think there are debates being planned. Everybody should listen in on those debates and find out what exactly the candidate's actually saying. We shouldn't listen to what the candidate's friend is saying, what a member in the candidate's party is saying, but what the candidate is promising the Edo people and how he's going to be held accountable to that promise.
Mr. Lawal, well said. That's why we brought you to sieve out this filibustering that we hear. But you've also talked about voter apathy, and I want you to comment further on that, because on one hand, the PDP is saying the way they are looking at the playing field, it looks like they are going to be PDP against the police. The APC is saying the Edo security network is going to be a challenge for them. In fact, even some members of the Labour Party that I've listened to say dismantle that network on one hand. So everybody is looking at a security apparatus that may work for or work against them. What do you propose, and how will this affect the turnout in the maybe in the next 1 minute, if you can wrap it up for us?
Okay, I think security of elections, according to the Electoral Act in Nigeria, is vested solely in the power of INEC, not in the state governor, not in the federal government, and not in any other apparatus. I think if INEC decides to do, or INEC is mandated or held liable by every political party to do its exact job, then this should not be a problem. I understand these prevalent problems on incumbency, federal power, which normally happens and which is the culture of our elections, as we've seen. But I clearly state that INEC should be held liable on these particular election issues, because according to the Electoral Act, security is vested solely in the hands of INEC. So INEC is to be held liable. Parties can write to INEC and state what they think the problem is, whether it's Labour Party, PDP, APC, NNPP, ADC, or SDP, or whoever is running, or let's say PRP. They should be able to write to INEC and state these grievances, because INEC is vested with it. So if anything happens within the elections, those people can be held for breaking electoral offenses. And this time, we are hoping generally that the courts too will be behind the security of elections in Nigeria.
The concern is that the level of insecurity, we're all concerned, given what has played out in the last few weeks, that I'm sure you're very familiar with. So let's come to an inference that I expect from your organization. So how does Electoral College assess a successful election? So if you give us that basic metrics and parameter in the next 1 minute or so, we'll be able to use that as part of our guiding light to know whether this election outcome will be well or not.
Okay, how do we assess a great election? First and foremost, ease of voting by voters. Yes, successful election. Ease of voting by voters, whether they are disabled, abled, physically challenged, or non-physically challenged. Second would be access where voter materials arriving on time and nobody being delayed. Third would be no interference by any political party, its thugs, and which is still security, its thugs, or any other parameter. Fourth would be the speed at which INEC translates data to results. That is key, how INEC translates data to results and what methods it uses. And then, which is critical to the Electoral College, as fourth, last and not the least, is participation by the Edo people. So if Edo has like a population of, let's say, voting population of, let's say, 1.2 million or 1.5 million, and you have only 200,000 people coming to vote out for governor, we feel even if other parameters are met, this election is not successful. So we expect more than 50%, let's just say 750,000 participating in these elections. Then with the other parameters set, we can see this successful election.
That your very last point is, as a Nigerian, I want to naturally say an amen, but given what played out as 10% in the last election, how are we going to move from 10% to 50%? Maybe your organization and the rest of you will be able to make that happen, but I must thank you. So I've taken down notes: ease of voting, timely arrival of voter materials, no security breach, data result transmission, and all of this. If they do all of this, some of us will be able to say, exit polls will be easy for some of the technologies we have, because if they are uploaded quickly, we can get the result as early without declaring, but just to guide the people. Mr. Lawal, you always be called upon moments like this as we get closer to the election. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and I'll always be available. Thank you very much.
All right, Kunle Lawal is the Executive Director, Electoral College, Nigeria. Well, that's it on the program. Thank you so much for watching. But before we go, remember that we brought you that breaking news that the NLC President, Joe Ajaero, is now in the custody of the Department of State Services. He was arrested at the Abuja International Airport, that's Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, on his way to the UK. That's the information we're getting. We don't know what this is connected with, whether it has to do with investigation being carried out over where his name was mentioned concerning treason and subversion, cybercrime, and the rest of the crime. But we can guarantee you on Channels Television, as soon as we get those details, we'll bring you up to speed. Thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics.